Hello. Today I'm going to try to ask and answer the question, why don't they just stop? It's a question that people who have never been addicted often ask of people who are addicted. Um, I've come to learn a few things about it. As many of you know, I've never dealt with an addiction myself, but in working with these good people and befriending them and so forth, I've come to understand a few things about what's going on. I'm not an expert, but I've written some blogs over the year or over this year about it, and I'd like to share one, two, maybe three with you, but it may offer some answers. This one blog is called "I Need My Medicine," and there's a link to it right there in the explanation of this video. So anyway, let me just try to read this to you. It's called "I Need My Medicine." How are you? Is a typical and rather sterile question that everyone asks everyone else whenever we see each other for the first time each day. It comes to mean not much of anything. Do we really care how the other person is? I'm guilty of it just as much as anyone else. When I was first getting to know the men and women of the community under the bridge in Kensington, and this was before it was called Emerald City, I would say, "Hi, first name, how are you today?" The most typical answer that I would receive has been along the lines of, "Not well, I'm sick," or "I need my medicine." And here's where my lack of understanding, due to never being an addicted person myself, shined as bright as a spotlight on a foggy night. I would look at each person and ask them what type of cold they had. Chest cold, head cold, allergies. And out of the politeness that I've discovered in almost every person in this community, they would respond with, "No, I'm dope sick and I need my medicine." I still didn't really understand what they meant until just a couple days ago, a couple days before this blog, when a member of this community explained through word and example exactly what was meant by this phrase. I sat down on the sidewalk with one person who was feeling dope sick. He looked at me, or he told me, that it had been far too long since his last injection of heroin. Dope sickness can manifest itself differently in different people. His dope sickness was something like allergy becoming flu. In the few minutes that we sat together, I observed his symptoms going from mild to severe allergy to a headache and nausea. He apologized in advance for the possible accident that he may have in his pants. "I'll be better as soon as I get my medicine," he said. He excused himself from our conversation to go and get his medicine. I saw him not even half an hour later, and he was completely healed. All symptoms were gone. All I needed was my medicine. I finally got it, at least to a small degree. I finally understood the desperate need of a person trapped in addiction to continue to need their medicine, to keep from becoming increasingly outrageously physically sick. So what's missing from the above description? Nowhere did I mention getting high from their drug use. I sat down with another person on the opposite sidewalk from the above discussion as he prepared 4 or 5 packets of heroin for one injection. As he was doing so with the skill of any RN preparing a shot for a patient in a hospital, this man looked at me and said, "Chris, I've built up such an immunity that I don't get high anymore. I continue to do this to keep from getting sick. I need my medicine. For some, but not all, of the lady members of the community, their source of income for their medicine is their body. One woman told me that to keep from getting sick, she will stand on a street corner or walk around on Kensington Avenue for hours as dope sickness settles in until some man, and I use that term loosely, makes an offer. This is a quote. See if I can get through it. One was an important lawyer who picked me up in his Cadillac, took me to a Center City hotel, tied me to the bed, had his way with me, got dressed, untied me, and left the room. I had to use some of the money he gave me for public transit just to get back here to buy my medicine. With tears running down my cheeks, just as much as tears running down her cheeks, I asked, "Why do you do this?" "I need my medicine." Whew. I wrote that on August 26th last year. So that gave me some understanding. There's another one or two blogs that I'd like to read to you. And let me just say quickly, I don't like dwelling on this part of it, but this ministry does cost something. If you go to my blog site, if you go to the link, you'll see a page that will take you to all that. Please consider contributing. This is from December 12th. On the outside looking in, the mystery of addiction. I was recently asked if safe injection sites promote heroin use. Expanding the question a little bit, does providing food, water, and clothing, fresh needles, and showers at local agencies promote heroin use? After this year of hearing stories that I've heard directly from the people living in their addiction, I've come to this conclusion. Nothing promotes heroin use more than the lack of a system in place to fully and humanely deal with this current pandemic. No one decides to become addicted. No one decides, or that is, no one wants to stay addicted. For those of us on the outside looking in on this issue, that is to say, for those of us who have never personally dealt with addiction within our own being, there is a mystery there that we simply cannot understand. The strength of a drug addiction is outrageously powerful. Perhaps these two illustrations will help us understand. In a conversation with one man, a longtime resident of Emerald City, I asked him if what I've heard is true about the sense of having a demon inside of them in their addiction. "Absolutely," he said. "This demon makes me do things that I would never otherwise do to support my habit that I would never otherwise have. I am not the person who does these things. The demon is doing them, and I feel powerless to stop it." Now, footnote. There are many ways to interpret what the demon is. Some will say that it is, in fact, Satan. Others will say that the drug itself is the demon. So however you may interpret this, suffice it to say that there is a power seemingly beyond one's self that is causing people to stay in this. Okay, illustration number 2. I introduced myself to a new resident of Emerald City, a woman in her 20s. I mentioned my church affiliation. She promptly shared with me her deep love for our Lord. With a sparkle in her eyes, she explained that is a devout Roman Catholic. She tries to attend Mass every day and loves it as her expression of her Lord, of her love for her Lord. And then she paused. The sparkles in her eyes started to run down her cheeks as tears. She looked at me and she said, "I'm sorry. I have to leave now. It's time for me to go humiliate myself." She wiped away her melted sparkles, turned, and left for her evening of dates. If those of us on the outside of addiction looking in can just accept the fact that there is a mystery there that we cannot and will never fully understand, then there's a chance that we can more readily accept the addicted person as being the human being worthy of dignity, honor, respect, and love. December 12th, 2017. And a third blog that relates to this from this past January 24th. I titled this one, Between the Sin and the Cell. And again, if you would go to the link that I have in the description area of this live Facebook, you'll see these blogs and you'll see a couple different ways that you could financially support what's going on here. So between the sin and the cell, there's a mystery between the sin and the cell that we are all missing. Somewhere between the sin, that is to say, the inappropriate action of the man who sticks that needle in his neck, or that woman who engages in that date, and the human body's determination to vomit or burst forth with uncontrollable diarrhea if it doesn't get its medicine, as I referred to, there is a process happening or an ingredient stirring that none of us, not theologians, nor pastors, nor medical people, nor law enforcement, nor government officials who create public policy are grasping. What causes that beautiful, tall, slender, blonde, and deeply devout Christian woman in her 20s who expresses her faith through her Roman Catholic roots by attending Mass almost daily, to push aside her faith, even through tears, to allow the growth of bad injection abscesses, and to humiliate herself multiple times in one night for the sake of raising funds for the obtainment of her medicine? Answer that question, and you'll be the first to identify what we're all missing between the sin and the cell. What causes a once law-abiding man to take up shoplifting or home burglary for the sake of obtaining money for his medicine? Answer that question, and you'll be the first to identify what we're all missing between the sin and the cell. What causes a woman to sacrifice her parental role and relationship with her newborn or any of her young children so that she can stay in relationship with her medicine? Answer that question, and you'll be the first to identify what we are all missing between the sin and the cell. What causes a pastor to leave his pastorate for the safeguarding of his sin? Answer that question, and you'll be the first to identify what we are all missing between the sin and the cell. Those cells of the human body. There are cells in the human body that tell the body how to digest food and how to have a bowel movement. Other cells keep headaches from happening, while other cells keep you feeling as though your skin is part of your body. When the body of the addicted human doesn't get its medicine, all those cells protest in the only way that each team of cells knows to do. Digestion cells tell the body to vomit, while other cells on that team protest with uncontrollable diarrhea. Headache control cells give the order to do whatever is necessary to make the head explode. Cells that hold the skin in place seemingly let go. These cells are doing nothing wrong. They are doing what they were designed and created by God to do. Cells have no sense of morality nor measure to regulate themselves in such matters. They are just doing what they do and responding to what they know, and all are designed to do so by the one who created them. So what is it that causes the human being who has been formed in the image of God to avoid these miserable experiences at the cost of their beauty, their children, their pastorate, their profession, their vocation, their reputation? Answer that question, and you'll be the first to identify what we are all missing between the sin and the cell. What causes that man to flush $1 million business, that nurse to give up her childhood dream of service to the sick and suffering? What kind of pen gets into the hand of the architect who redraws the design of his dream for the sake of his syringe? What causes the honor student or the high school star athlete to risk jail and STDs for the sake of intake of their medicine? What makes so many of these good people endure sub-zero damp temperatures under a bridge so as to stay in the neighborhood near their blue packets of white powder? What makes a man or woman willing to endure body cavity checks and other humiliations of incarceration for the sake of maintaining the opportunity in freedom to commit their sin? Answer those questions, and you'll be the first to identify what we are all missing between the sin and the cell. There's a mystery between the sin and the cell that we are all missing. January 24th, 2018. I hope that gives you some idea of why they don't just stop. I've been doing this for only a year, and I love these people. I'm just going to leave it at that. Please consider supporting what we're doing. I'll say more about the details of what we're doing in a later broadcast, but for now, thank you so much.